So I'm going to talk for the next 20 minutes about me, because that's just something I like doing a lot of. I hope you don't mind. That's me. Well, actually, you can't really see that very well because of the imagery. You can see it better over there. That was my Mercedes CLK in 1998. W66 WWW. Actually, the 66 was for web. That's my 2-year-old daughter, or she was 2 years of age in Tony. She's about to turn 20 this week. So as of next year, or thereabouts, I will have been in the space for 20 years. Seems like a hell of a long time. I've been in multi-channel retail for 30 years because I've owned stores, I've owned call centers, I've owned the web, I've owned direct mail for different brands. I'm the ex-head of online for Harrods, for a multi-brand owner called Pentland. I was Burberry's first head of e-commerce in Europe and also a business called Ted Baker. I'm the CEO and founder of Practicology, which I'll talk briefly about in a second. I'm a NED for White Stuff and Conviviality. Now, NED stands for Non-Executive Director, and interestingly, I was doing a presentation recently for the board of Celtic Football Club, which is my team of choice, for those of you that follow football. And when I pulled up this bit about being a NED for White Stuff and Conviviality, I'd forgotten, because I've been out of Glasgow for 12 years, that a NED in Glasgow is a thug. So that got me some quizzical looks. I also have the honour of sitting on KPMG and Ipsos's retail think tank, which sits once a quarter and produces a health check on the retail industry. So that's a bit about me, a little bit about Practicology, just a couple of slides. We're a multi-channel e-commerce consulting practice. We've been around now for 6 years. We've got offices in London, Hong Kong, Sydney and Melbourne. I don't know if there's any Australians in the room. Any Australians? No? Okay. I'm glad that your humour's working well so far. Our USP, is that we've all worked in retail. These are the brands that myself and my colleagues have had the pleasure of heading up online in different aspects of multi-channel for in the past. And the ubiquitous client slide. So these are just some of the brands that we're working with in the UK, Australia, and also in Hong Kong. So, do retailers put the customer first? Who'd like to offer me an answer on that? Anyone think retailers put the customer first? No, of course they don't. They pay lip service to it. Now, I don't know if this translates into international languages, but that's a pair of lips and they're giving service. So retailers talk about putting the customer first. It's in the mission statement, it's in the vision, it's talked about around the board table, but in reality it isn't delivered. And the stats prove it. So this is basically aggregated and anonymized data from customers of ours over a 6-7 year period that shows that basically year after year, customer churn is increasing. It's becoming much harder for retailers to retain existing customers. Why is that? Well, largely because of the web. Because the web's changed everything. The proliferation of choice has meant that the customer is in control, and I'll talk about that in a minute. 47% of customers highlight poor knowledge of store associates as being the most disliked element of the experience when in a store. Now that's interesting. Who's old enough to remember the Waltons? I remember the Waltons. There's a few of you out there, along with me, probably remember the Waltons. So that was good old personalized customer experience. You walked into a store, they knew who you were, they knew who you were married to, they knew who your family were, they knew what you bought, and they already had products ready for you, and they knew what to cross-sell and upsell you onto. So it was very personal. Burberry, one thing that they're doing to give their store colleagues that type of information is that they've implemented clienteling solutions. So they're putting iPads in the hands of their store colleagues, packed full of data on customers, if they know about those customers. If you are an existing Burberry customer, then they've got some history on you and they can serve you effectively, or more effectively than they would have done otherwise. This is the old queuing system in a traditional retail store. I don't really enjoy that. I'm sure most of you don't. So, of course, one of the things that's come about is what we call the mobile till. So this is Victoria Beckham's store. Note the sparsity, probably what you would expect of a luxury brand. But there's one obvious thing missing, and that is there's no fixed electronic point of sale. If this was a retail store and I was standing behind the cash desk, there might be me and half a dozen of my colleagues here. And there's this big barrier between me and you, the customer. Now, if you're like me, I don't like talking to people in a store. I'm on a mission. When I go in to buy something and somebody approaches me, it puts my back up. I don't know why. It's just the way I am. But when you put the mobile till into the hands of the colleagues of the store, you force the customers to engage with colleagues in the store. So it improves customer engagement, and it also gives the retailer an opportunity to capture data. because those mobile tills have e-receipts. So no longer does the customer have to stand there and wait for a physical receipt. They can be emailed, and all of a sudden the retailer has overcome one of the biggest challenges that retailers have always had. How do I get customer data in store? Of course, it's no longer just about stores. So as I said, the customer is 100% in control of when and from whom they buy. Some of you are too young to remember this, but for those of you that aren't, if you think back to the mid-90s, the retailer was in control, not the customer. There were bricks and mortar retail stores that you could buy from. You might be able to buy from a catalogue. Some retailers had direct mail. Some maybe a call centre, not many. But that was it. There was no internet. The internet changed everything, and it put the control in the hands of the customer. And I think this is the thing that retailers are still trying to get their heads around. Now, some of you, as part of your course, hopefully will be reading up on the 4 Ps, yeah? The marketing mix, the good old marketing mix. The good old marketing mix was created in 1950. Jesus, I wasn't even born in 1950. I was born in 66. You know, the marketing mix, in my opinion, is dead. I don't think it's relevant anymore, and I'll explain why. Because it talked about product, price, place, and promotion. Where's the customer? We don't really need customers. Why do we need to talk about the customer in the marketing mix? What about why they want to buy in the first place? What about what's next for them? Retailers are great at customer acquisition. We just saw a great presentation from one of the leading search companies, and they do a fantastic job. They've got great clients. They're good at what they do. They're great at helping you bring, or retailers bring more people into the store. But retailers don't focus on retention. They focus far too much on acquisition. So they don't think about what's next for customers once we've sold them something in the first place. And what about when they want their order fulfilled? That's become really important because, again, the customer is in control of their journey now, not the retailer. So where and when they have their order fulfilled is massively important. And guess what? Being a good consultant as I am now, I created something new. So here's a freebie for you today. I created something called the customer mix. And I trademarked it, by the way, just in case you get any smart ideas. But you can use it. Feel free to talk about it. So this is the marketing mix. This is the extended marketing mix. This is the 7 Ps, which also included people, process, and physical evidence. The people, if you read up in your textbooks, does not talk about the customer. That talks about people in the business. So I created a mix that says, who is it you're selling to? Why do they want to buy? What do they want to buy? Where do they want to buy from? When do they want their order fulfilled? And what's next? What's in it for me if I give you my business in the first place? So I'm hoping that will replace the marketing mix. Maybe you can help with that. What are the drivers to putting the customer first? New organizational structures. So retailers are still structured around silos, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So this good-looking guy here on the left-hand side, that's me, slightly different hairstyle. And this was September last year. That young man there is the man that invented the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. So I had the great privilege of sharing a stage with him in Rome. And believe it or not, this lady here is a BBC presenter called Babita Sharma, and he is a French gentleman, and he's one of the co-founders of Bon Privé. She asked me the first question. It was quite interesting. She said, what's next for the web, and what does it mean for retail? I was like, why are you asking me? You've got the founder of the World Wide Web sitting next to you. So it was a bit of a kind of rabbit in the headlights moment, but I think I gave a reasonably good answer, and I said, it's not about the web, it's about multi-channel, and it's not about channels, it's about the customer. And the problem is that in retail, we haven't structured around the customer, we have structured around channels. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is when I started as head of online at Burberry in 2006, first head of e-commerce in Europe. You'd imagine big luxury brand, I'd have this fantastic office, probably half the size of this, kitted out with luxurious desks and everything else. No, I was in a broom cupboard above the store in the old store in Regent Street, not the new funky digitally enabled store. Because Burberry didn't know what to do with e-commerce. They didn't really know what it was about. So they found someone like me who thought, well, he knows what he's talking about. They parked me in a corner. So that was standalone e-commerce when it came from a time when e-commerce meant selling on desktop sites, and it was a business within a business. This is where most brands are now, which is, we've created these terms of omni or multi-channel team, and the team has greater scope of accountability and works more closely with the rest of the business. It's not quite as siloed as it used to be, but it retains online accountability for the P&L. That's where we're going. In 3 or 4 years' time, job titles won't matter a jot. We won't have a qualifier like multi-channel or omni-channel or e-commerce. We just won't have it. Business will be structured around the customer and the digital skills are distributed. Customer experience has to include online and offline. How many businesses do you know? Have you ever come across somebody in a store business that has the job title of Head of Customer Experience? In a store, in the retail store, in the bricks and mortar. Have you ever heard that job title? I don't. I have never heard it. It only exists in the online world. Why is that? Why does it only exist in the online world and not in the stores? Does customer experience not matter in the stores? So, lo and behold, you've probably heard this job title. That job title has become quite prominent, particularly in the last couple of years. Actually, particularly in the last year. The Chief Customer Officer. And what it's doing is it's bringing together brand and marketing communications and customer insight under one person. So we work with House of Fraser. And one of the challenges that they had is they had a brand director who owned visual merchandising in the store. He owned above-the-line advertising. He owned social media. And he owned CRM in the store. Then you had Andy Harding, who's just leaving, in the process of leaving the business, who was the multi-channel director. He owned digital marketing, which was all about the performance-driven marketing. He owned visual merchandising and the website. He owned e-CRM, i.e. email marketing, and he owned a bit of social media. And the problem is none of it was connected. So the customer, the poor old customer, which is all of you and me, well, we didn't get that consistent joined-up experience. That's where that role's come from. What is interesting is that other brands, such as John Lewis, Marks & Spencer, and Debenhams, have recently given the role of retail director to one. So they've given the P&L responsibility for the stores and e-commerce to one person. And that person in all of those businesses is the person from a digital background. I think that's a very bold move. I think it's a little risky, because if you haven't run stores before, and those still account for 70–80% of your business, you take a bit of a risk. But I think as long as you make sure that person's surrounded with the right people, then it can certainly work. Then there's removing the technology barrier to put the customer first. So who's going to unblock the path? Any IT directors in the room? No? Yep. I have nothing against IT directors, CTOs, chief digital officers, or any other job title for that matter that relates to IT. I love them. They should be the enablers. Unfortunately, in most businesses, technology is not the enabler. It's actually the blocker. And it's not the person that's the blocker, because they want, you would go to the IT director or the CTO and you would say, here's this new customer journey that I want to deliver for our customers over the next few years. And he or she would go, fantastic, I really love that. I'm fully bought into that. The problem is, I can't deliver that until 5 years on Friday, because I've already got a roadmap the length of this room. I've got to keep the tills running. I've got to keep the lights on. I've got to keep the back office going. It's about resource. It's about bringing in the right people to be able to deliver the technology in tandem. This man I shared a stage with 3 years ago at shop.org in the US, and I'm going to do a very poor Southern American accent now. So he was then the CEO of a small business you might have heard of called Walgreens. And he stood up and he said, I see myself like a B-52 bomber, and my job is to remove the roadblocks to empower my president of digital, Sana Chala, that's her sitting over there, to leverage digital to deliver my business goals. And I was bowing at this man's feet. I thought, why have I never worked for a CEO like you that recognized the best thing he could do? He didn't know what the customer journey looked like anymore in this day and age, even 3 years ago. He didn't know what the technology was that was required to deliver that experience. What he bloody well did know is he had hired people that did, and the best thing he could do is remove the roadblocks, clear the path for the people with the knowledge about the customer and the technology to enable them to deliver it. One tip, if you're ever going to talk about that, don't do it in Berlin. And you may laugh, but I did that about 2 weeks ago at a conference. I actually went down very well, but I was about 10 seconds into it and I realized I'm talking about B-52 bombers in Germany. Probably not a good move. But the Germans liked it. Customer service. We're not very good at it in retail. So if you leave here with one thing from my session today, think about if you were a customer service business, and that goes for you service providers in here. If you were a customer service business that happened to sell search engine optimization, or happened to sell language services, or whatever it is that you did, footwear, clothing, electricals, what would you do differently? Because I bet you would do lots of things differently. If you walked across every part of your business and thought, we're a customer service business, we just happen to sell things. An example coming up in a minute. Appliances online, AO.com. Customer service focus. So they supply fridge freezers, washing machines, tumble dryers. They'll give you a text or they'll call you when they're about to deliver. They're about half an hour before, and they'll say, "Hi, Mrs. Newman, we're just about to deliver your tumble dryer." Mrs. Newman goes, "Oh, I'm at Sainsbury's. I'm just doing my shopping." They'll say, "Don't worry, get in a taxi, get home for 11 o'clock, take the receipt, get the receipt, and we'll pay for your taxi journey," you know. Now that's empowering staff to deliver the right service and really thinking out of the box. So one of the other things that has to change to put customers first are the KPIs, the key performance indicators, right? Everyone in this room still talks about conversion rates, average order values, units per transaction, unique visits, repeat visits, yada, 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 right? All these things are definitely important. But how about net promoter score? How about customer satisfaction and customer happiness? How about all the things that actually infer what your customers really think of you as a business? In the UK at the moment, believe it or not, the couriers in this country, all the big delivery companies, they're not incentivized by successful delivery. They're incentivized by attempted delivery. Yeah? So that means a courier rocks up, cards the customer, chucks the product over the fence, puts it in a wheelie bin or leaves it with the next door neighbour. They don't care whether the customer got whatever it is they ordered or not, because they're incentivized by attempted delivery, not successful delivery. Appliances online, they're only incentivized by one thing: customer satisfaction. If they deliver a fridge freezer, a washing machine, a tumble dryer, a TV or a microwave, and the customers don't give them 90% ratings, they don't get paid. That drives behaviour. If you were setting out to disrupt your space, what would you do differently? Well, if you were a bank, like Metro Bank, your branches would probably be open 7 days a week, wouldn't they? Who's got time these days to go to a bank Monday to Friday? What a pain. We're all busy people. They're open 362 days a year. For those of you that do live in the UK, we've got a lot of bank holidays. I don't know any banks that are open 362 days a year. And from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, because that might just be more convenient for you to go to the bank before you go to work or on the way home from work. Branches are dog friendly. Woof woof. The guy's obviously a pet lover. And what they do is they refund new and existing Metro Bank customers when they rehouse a dog or a cat from Battersea Dog or Cat Home. There's something really nice about that. There is something community and customer-centric about that. But it's the service levels. They've really rethought how to have a retail bank in this day and age and be successful. Burberry. When you buy online from Burberry, unlike every other brand I know, you don't get an email from a faceless head office, you know, that says, "Thanks for your order, Mrs. Smith." You get an email from Martin in Regent Street. "Thanks for your order, Mrs. Smith." And you've got my contact details. And all of a sudden, if you've got an issue, you could engage with somebody in the store. So what they've done is they've taken an online customer and they've immediately turned them potentially into a multi-channel customer by delivering that type of service. Transparency. Now, I have nothing against Costa Coffee. I do drink Costa Coffee and Starbucks. I probably marginally prefer Starbucks. This chap here, Paul Hopkinson, so he was on Facebook earlier on in March. He said, "Dear Costa, I posted this to your page and you deleted it. When it hit 219,000 views, 6 exclamation marks. You were commenting on the wall, etc. You deleted it. Why? If there's nothing to hide, you don't delete other posts. Is it because it got so many hits?" 6.4 million views. And do you know what he was talking about? He basically had worked out, and I don't know whether this is a common theme or not, so I'm not going to get sued for this, but he had worked out that the large Costa Coffee, the Massimo, actually had the same amount of content as the regular. But clearly the large was costing about 30 or 40 pence more. Now, that wasn't a great way to manage it. I'm sure we all agree. The best way to manage that would have been to have an open dialogue and to say to the customer that in all likelihood that probably was a one-off. If it wasn't, then they really do have a problem. EO.com. This man, John Roberts, very wealthy man, founder of the business, spends 40 minutes a day signing customer letters, whether it was a good experience or a bad one. How many brands do you know that do that? How many brands send you a letter if you compliment them? How many of them send you a letter if you've had a bad experience? Well, most of them are like Costa Coffee and they try and ignore you. Leslie Farrell, took delivery of my new washing machine today. Thank you for a fabulous service. Bless you. This is my third large kitchen appliance bought from you in the last 3 years. I'd never buy from anywhere else. I was delighted. Thank you once again. John writes back, Leslie, you were kind enough to entrust us with your custom and then broadcast it on Facebook to your friends. Therefore, I thought it was only right that I should write back to you and tell you why what you did was so important. Guess what Leslie does? She goes straight back onto Facebook. Goes, look at this. I just got a letter from the MD, the CEO and the founder of AO.com. Hallelujah, you know? And all of a sudden, tens and hundreds of thousands of customers actually think, crikey, this is a brand that really cares. The value proposition. So they sell fridge freezers and washing machines, etc., white goods. Best price guarantee, free delivery on all products. You choose a day because you're in control as a customer. You choose a day that suits you. And by the way, we're rated excellent on Trustpilot, scoring higher than Currys and John Lewis. Why wouldn't you buy from them? Think of a good reason why you wouldn't. You know, they've just ticked all the boxes there. Delivery. Guess what? The UK want it free. The French want it free. The Germans, not so many, only 41% compared to 55% of French, 56% French, 55% of British. Guess what? The Germans want it fast. Are we surprised? No. They want it fast. And they want a time slot. So time slots and speedy delivery are more important to Germans than free delivery, which is more important to the Brits. In terms of the locality, click and collect is huge in the UK, as you probably know. Less so in Germany, fairly big in France. Local shops are definitely dominant in France in terms of order fulfillment, and lockers in Germany. We're still getting our heads around lockers, I think, in the UK, and haven't quite worked out what the role for a locker is. Returns are free and easy. Now, guys, I know you've got a pair of these in your wardrobe at home, or should I say your closet? As have I, of course. So this is an interesting one. Shoes of Prey from Australia. These are all bespoke products. So you ladies can bespoke the heel, the fabric, the color, just everything about it, the style. And what they do is they offer a 365-day return service, or you can remake them. Now, why do they offer 365-day returns? Because they know, like probably most of us, in fashion, if you're going to return something, you're going to do it almost immediately. You'll do it in the first week or so. But remake them, if you actually don't like it, that's a pretty powerful statement. And guess what? This is some research from Metapack, the delivery company. 76% of shoppers viewed a retailer's return options before placing an order. 51% failed to proceed with a purchase because the returns process offered wasn't easy or convenient. And that was the research that they conducted that I showed you on the previous two slides. So returns really matter. I'm still amazed by the amount of retailers that don't want to offer free returns. Offering free returns in Australia has a whole host of other challenges because of the geography. But elsewhere, you know, if you don't offer free returns, you really got to ask whether or not customers will buy from you. What you stand for also matters. So you've got Tom's, improving the lives of other people. With every product you purchase, Tom's will help a person in need, one for one. Or Warby Parker in the States, selling these things, glasses. For every pair purchased, a pair is distributed to someone in need. When I was at the World Retail Congress a couple of months ago in Dubai, I did a panel, and there was a retail optical chain from the Middle East called Mugrabi. Middle East and North Africa, and they're actually in places like Cameroon trying to cure blindness. And they don't promote it although they did talk about it in this session, but they don't promote it. You don't find it anywhere in their advertising or anything. They're just quietly going around trying to give something back because they're a very successful business. Localization. How do you talk to your customers? So American retailers, when they come into the UK, and those of you that are heavily involved in internationalization like us, know that can be an issue. Translations are often not fully localized. This is Abercrombie & Fitch. So if you look here in their filters or their subcategories of products, rompers and pants, in their language are actually referring to trousers and playsuits. In the UK, those terms refer to lingerie and underwear. So basically, the terms don't mean anything to the UK customers. So there's a high propensity. A lot of customers are going to be landing on that page and not clicking on those links because they mean something different to them. American Eagle, who are a client of ours, when they first launched in the UK, this is the creative for Bonfire Night. We had to say to the client, that's really nice. I'd probably rather be there on Bonfire Night because that's California or somewhere like that, and everybody's got short sleeves and shorts on around the fire, and we had to say Bonfire Night in the UK. We've all got hats, scarves, and big jackets on because it's a bit chilly. Language also matters in Australia because there's something wrong with the word thong. That's a thong, in my humble opinion. A very nice thong as well. That's what Australians call thongs. So it is amazing, little nuances around language. how you can get it wrong, whether it's with your search engine optimization, your paid search, or whatever it is you're doing, just the category terminology on your website. And I have to confess that actually I think in this country, we're probably the worst when it comes to language. Let's be honest, how many people in the UK speak foreign languages? You know, not many of us. And yet we expect the rest of the world to speak English. So we're not very good at it. And I've got a very short video just to show you why I think it's really important. So hopefully you'll find this moderately amusing.
Oh, no. Jesus.
You all right?
No, I'm having a bit of a nightmare, actually.
What's the matter?
Well, I've had all the international CEOs from around the world in this room. In 10 minutes, the annual summit's supposed to take place. They've flown thousands of miles to get here, and my translator hasn't turned up. I need to find someone who can translate into 7 different languages.
Well, I can do that. Yeah, I did a TEFL in my gap year.
Welcome back to London, ladies and gentlemen. This is Helen Marsh, who'll be our interpreter today. So, without further ado, let's address section 1.1, multinational profiteering for the financial year 2005-2006. Helen.
Hurdy-gurdy-gurdy. Hurdy-gurdy-gurdy-gurdy. Gurdy. Oh, bud. Oh, bud.
No, ma no, che cosa ti dici, vado dici?
This is not my sandwich.
The final couple of things that I want to talk about very quickly are building relationships. So retailers are not very good at it. You know what, I'm going to hold this. In addition to not being good at customer service, they're not very good at relationships. So let me give you an example. I know you will be surprised to hear that I'm actually 100 years old. Seriously. I only look 50 because I use Lab Series skin cream. And I'm not sponsored by them. And I used to buy this from John Lewis. Then I went directly to the brand for various reasons. And when I made my first purchase, I was in Australia visiting my team there because we have an office there. And my wife said to me, "Did you buy a dressing gown from Lab Series?" And I was like, "No." Of course, being a suspicious Scotsman, I thought, they've conned me. I've bought something that I didn't mean to buy. And then I realized it was a gift. And I thought, well, that's pretty clever. You know, no one's ever given me a gift like that. I got home, I tried it on, and it felt like it should have cost 100 quid. It was really nice. The issue with that is, I mean, that dressing gown probably cost them a tenner. They could have probably given me 5 dressing gowns with my first purchase. Anyway, cut a long story short, what could they do in 3 years? In 3 years after giving me a dressing gown, all they've done is send me 3 emails every week trying to sell me more stuff. 3 emails a week, right? And yet, they know who I am. They know where I live. They know I buy this nonsense every 7 weeks. They know how much I spend. They've never asked me what sort of skin have I got or whether it's making any difference. They've never told me about other products that might be relevant for my skin type. They've never sent me grooming guides. They haven't told me about brand partners that I might want to engage with. So they haven't done a whole load of things that they could do. And that's because retail is all about push. Yeah? You heard the term CRM, customer relationship management. The clues in the middle letter, relationship, are we don't build relationships, we just sell stuff. We're transactional. That's going to be the big change in the next 5 years, trust me. If you want into a career, that's probably, CRM's probably the place to be. And the final thing I want to talk about very briefly is removing the blocker. And the final blocker is about investment. A retailer needs a leadership team that look beyond cost. So some of you will be in retail. I've spent my whole career in retail or servicing retail. And in whatever business we're in, we have to prove business cases, don't we? If we're going to do something new or we want investment, we have to go to the board and we have to say, here's the business case and here are the funds that I want and why. The problem with that in this space is that if you only looked at cost, you wouldn't do that. So those are Argos's new concept stores. You wouldn't do what House of Fraser have done and open up order points. So you can walk into an order point and not physically take away a product, but you can place an order through a touchscreen and you can choose to have it delivered to your house or pick it up in the store the next day. The reason why they've done that is it enables them to extend the reach of their brand without having to open these massive stores of theirs. They can go in to other areas cost effectively and they can extend the reach of the brand. So the moral of the story is if you need to be 100% sure, you're going to be 100% late. We're in a world of disruption where things are moving very quickly. And if every board has to sign every single penny off, then the businesses that you're working for might not be there in 3 or 4 years' time.